Ladies and gentlemen, Big Herald News.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewie.
Kia ora, Pat. And at the buzzer.
And at the buzzer, whilst the credits was playing, I heard it boop, and a little Chewie popped up. You know what that means at some stage in our introduction talk, what I'm going to have to do. But they'll do that. How are you, man? What's going on?
Good. Just had a work dinner with the teamies.
Dinner.
Full
What's
of
up?
spicy pizza. It's good
nice.
times.
Where'd you go? Biggie's?
No, Esplanade. Down by the
nice.
beach.
Oh, very good. How is it out there? The weather's pretty bad for a lot of the South Island. How is it down by the water in Dunedin?
Starting to rain,
Getting there?
and it's also dark. Dark isn't weather, but it was still dark.
Yeah.
Yes, I can
That's
hear
really
smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz, love songs till midnight. This is a little side note, right? Nothing. This is not part of the show or anything, but I just had a look at some of the Apple charts today, and our Gary Painder's podcast drops tomorrow morning, episode 2 of podcast tomorrow morning, talking about the census. And old mate's already number 2. Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Number 2 in the medical podcasting chart. So Apple Podcast for New Zealand. Well done, Gary. Let them know about that, won't we? Anywho, lots going on tonight. Anything we need to check in on, Chewie? Like, if there's anything exciting or?
No.
I'm just kind of ranting while I'm doing 3 things at once.
I thought you were
doing that
stalling.
one.
No, I've got nothing because I've literally just walked in the door.
And you're full of spicy pizza.
Spicy
Full
pizza.
of spicy. I was happy today because I saw there was a new Whistling Diesel video out today, and they are braking 4-wheel motorbikes, and that looks like fun. Okay, well, tonight on the show, whānau, we're going to do some more stuff around Bob Vylan. Chlöe and Seymour had a bit of a chat about Bob Vylan, but also I came across GBNews. GBNews is like the Sky News in America, is like the Fox News in the US. And they had someone on, I don't know who this lady was, but I've since done a bit of research. She is part of the movement Revolutionary Communists, so you'll love that, Chewie. Her name is Fiona Lalli, Lalli, and she's young, she looks vibrant, and I was actually thinking we will get this printed on a hat, but she wore the co-host like a hat. I think we need to get a hat which talks about wearing this hat like a hat or something like that, just that no one else will get the joke except us as a part of this. But he wore that hat like a hat, something like that. But yeah, so there's a couple of Bob Vylan things, and it is actually, even though we're going to talk a bit about Bob Vylan, we are actually talking about the media coverage of Israel Gaza. That's actually what we're talking about. That's the conduit to get in and talk about it. And it was interesting when they talked about it on that New Zealand Herald show. What's it called? Big Herald News, something like that. Is they played Bob Vylan doing the Free Palestine bit, but they wouldn't play the death to the IDF. I never said IVF because I'm really against giving babies that way. Death to the IDF. They wouldn't play it. And this interview I'm going to show you parts of from GBNews, like the first 3, it's like a 9-minute clip, and for the first 3 minutes, it's these two hosts talking about all of our listeners are saying we shouldn't be playing these clips because we shouldn't be advocating for killing the IDF, and it's becoming really interesting. And like we've been saying for quite a long time, a bit of a late realization for some of us, but it's the Israel issue that breaks the brains of these free speech purists and right-wing libertarians. It's the Israel thing. It's quite fascinating.
I've been seeing quite a few clips, mainly Instagram reels and that sort of thing, of this is obviously topic du jour on a lot of the British news panel shows and that sort of thing. And I think it's like, I mean, we've got criticisms of our media here. Like, I think Radio New Zealand is being way too passive on calling it what it is. That sort of thing. But then when you look at what's coming out of the BBC, what's coming out of the commentary shows in the UK, it's like the Glastonbury thing is the only thing to discuss.
Yeah.
It is not a discussion of, well, this is happening part of this wider discussion, unless somebody fucking snaps, and many of them have snapped and gone, well, this is ridiculous. This is a question of how many thousands of babies, hundreds of thousands of babies have been killed in the last 2.5 years. Like that's the most offensive thing. But here we are debating what Bob Vylan has done.
Yeah. It's a really interesting observation.
It's so blatant.
And I told the story, I think, once before, like 20 years ago. I can remember sitting in a church of kind of young, hip people. It was a Sunday evening because they didn't do Sunday mornings because that's not cool. And this person got up the front and said something. I can't remember the exact stats, so forgive me, but it was talking about starving kids, and said, a child dies every 30 minutes or 30 seconds or something, starves to death every 30 minutes. And all I can see looking around me in this church is no one gives a shit. And then he paused and he went, and right now you're more concerned that I just said the word shit in church than I just said these children are dying every 30 minutes. And so it's not a new thing, right? It's getting upset with the words describing something than the something itself. Like I'm really intrigued now, and we've seen people do this on Piers Morgan, but Fiona Lalli did it on this GBNews show, where they go back to wanting her to denounce the actions of Hamas on October the 7th. It's just like we're beyond that part of the conversation, and she refuses to. And I'm not going to stand here and say it's because it's obvious, but I think what's happening now is there are a certain number of people, commentators and stuff, who are going, we are no longer engaging in that conversation. And I think what they're saying is, because if I support or not Hamas, if I denounce or not Hamas, if I literally am on Hamas's side or not, the response that Israel has done has gone well past a proportionate one. So actually that conversation almost doesn't matter anymore, because the response has been, well, okay, let's put it this way, in a horrible tit for tat kind of way. You guys have done enough to pay back October 7th. You've done enough a long time ago. So to still be having this conversation around, do you denounce, do you denounce, do you denounce? And I was actually surprised because you haven't heard that so much in the last 6 months, but Bob Vylan has brought it back up again. And it feels like we're right back at the start of this conversation. And as you say, Chewie, and we're talking about, do you denounce and how dare you say those words rather than the atrocities that are actually happening. It's really, it's when I say it's interesting, it's horrific, but it is an interesting thing to look at and look down the look at community through that sort of that eyepiece lens.
I also think that there's a broader conversation here with recent law changes in the UK, and like anything that happens in the UK or the US or all of these sort of things, is that we must be aware of these things also happening here. As the law changes that came in under the British government criminalising protest and the wording that they use, like it just has to create a disruption, which is of course protest down to a T, people getting 7-year jail terms and stuff like that. There was the very publicised vandalism attack on a Royal Air Force base. Guy on an electric scooter got through the perimeter and sprayed a plane with red paint. And this was used as an example that Palestinian Peace Action was a terrorist organisation. They had committed...
Because he graffitied the plane.
They filled an engine full of red paint or something like that. And at that time, It was said that that aircraft was damaged beyond all repair, that it came under this massive destruction of military machinery, and it was clear that Palestinian Action, because they were associated with it, was a terrorist organization. I am pleased to let you know that that Royal Air Force plane is back in the air.
Okay.
So it's not damaged beyond all repair. It's damaged.
So it's like terrorism
past
light.
a week's repair. They put a new engine. They put it out there. But they are using this thing. Like, they are debating at the moment whether to make Palestinian Peace Action classified as a terrorist group.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of thing should be absolutely chilling for anybody that would say believes in free speech.
Yeah,
they should be screaming from the rooftops.
This is exactly the point. And we had the founder of the Free Speech Union on last night, who seemed very keen to curtail the speech of Bob Vylan, completely contrary to everything that the Free Speech Union says they stand for. But we've seen this before. But Guru brings up an interesting point, and we kind of talked about this last night with what we showed from Ash Sarkar. And Ash Sarkar was getting criticised, or at least posed the question, are you sure they're protesting in the right way? Because what if the message of Bob Vylan is being lost in the way that Bob Vylan has delivered it? And what Guru's just said here, Bob Vylan is being exploited by mainstream media and genocide enthusiasts as a distraction. Does that therefore mean that actually that question was kind of right? Like, I don't think he did anything wrong, right? Not at all. But it seems that the way he did choose to do it is now being used by, like, the Zionists and the fans of Zionists to distract from the issue. So what do? Do you therefore curtail the way you protest to make sure they can't do that? Or do you just stay true to yourself and do it? I don't have anything prepped for this. This is just a general and open conversation, but I'm interested. Like, I don't think you should ever hold back, but I also am aware that what's happening is Bob Vylan not holding back has enabled this other side of the conversation to go straight back to October 7th, to go straight back to do your denounce, to go straight back to, supporters of terrorists. So what do we just have to be? I think we have to be true to ourselves and how we explain things and what we believe, and almost like wherever it lands is where it lands, whether they do that with it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I had quite an interesting conversation with my workmate about this. Basically, I just said, "Hey, what do you think about this guy saying death to the IDF?" And look, he's a smart guy. I wouldn't say he's as obsessive about this sort of stuff as we are, but he just went, "It's unhelpful." Yeah. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, I just wish, people would stop killing each other and start listening to each other." And I was like, "Yeah, that's great. That is a fair point. I too wish people would listen to each other more and stop murdering each other. But in the absence of that, where the murder and death and the genocide is going on, why shouldn't you point out the obvious? Why shouldn't you make a comment? Like, a lot of these British shows that I've seen, drawing the parallel of, like, if he got up and said death to the Russian army, we would be fine with that because we support Ukraine. So why is there the calling for the death of the IDF? Why is that so why is that a red line issue for so many people?
Yeah.
And there you can't do it. You can't do it, and there isn't that discussion there. And I think, like, Bob Vylan's paying the price. Like, their management has well, their management.
But are they? What will they not be
the
bigger?
Big shit came from a couple of big.
Yeah, but in 2 years, 3 years, look at Rage Against the Scene when 9/11 happened. They disappeared for about 6 months and they came back bigger than ever. Like, I'm just thinking, and this is ultimately what will happen.
This is what I find really interesting, okay? So that they are taking a short-term financial hit. It is full Streisand effect at the moment. Like, I have liked a couple of Bob Vylan songs in the past. I've never listened to their back catalogue. It is all I'm listening to today. And I am like, holy shit. So the merch store is completely sold out. I cannot find a record to buy from
Right.
them, locally or internationally. And I think for the people that like Bob Vylan or like that style of politically conscious punk and hip hop, that audience doesn't give a single fuck that someone that reads the Daily Mail thinks that he's getting what he deserves. He's never heard of this guy before. He's definitely not going to the Manchester Festival that he's not allowed to play anymore. But he's furious.
He should get on the back of he should get on the back of a truck. When I say he, I keep saying he. Bob Vylan is a duo. They should get on the back of a truck outside that festival and do a free gig in the road outside the festival and see what happens. Look, can I just throw one more thing in? Because we're not going to have this divert everything. And I haven't got this as a clip, but I've got the audio, so I'm just going to play the sound in the background. This is One News reporting what Benjamin Netanyahu said about Hamas.
Today, though, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas will be eliminated to the ground, vowing to eradicate the militant group.
So death to Hamas. By someone who has got buttons for nuclear weapons. Yet the punk artist is the enemy of the right now. Eliminated them to the ground. You know, and look, I'm not saying how dare you say that about, we're not supporters of Hamas. We've made that very clear over the time. But this is exactly what we've been saying in the last couple of days. Death to ISIS. No one cares. Death to Hamas. We've just heard Benjamin Netanyahu say it in so many words. No one cares. If this is a war and there's two enemy combats, that's the IDF and Hamas. If the Prime Minister of Israel and the supporters of the IDF can say death to Hamas, then surely the supporters of the Palestinians are allowed to say death to the other side. The innocent civilians in Palestine, the Gazans, not Hamas, the innocent civilians. If innocent Israelis are allowed to say death to Hamas, then surely innocent and their supporters, then surely innocent Palestinians and their supporters are allowed to say death to the IDF. Surely.
I'm going to quickly show you something that made me laugh today, because one of the things about the punk music scene, and this is the same scene that Bob Vylan came up in as well, is the idea of DIY. Do it yourself. Don't ask permission. Just fucking go hard. This is how hard this sort of thing has resonated, and you'll forgive me, this is from my Instagram, so this might be a little bit janky playing it. But I saw this pop.
Death to the IDF!
People are making
Hell
merch.
yeah! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF!
Yeah.
Death to the IDF!
And some of the comments on that video, I bet y'all are on the coolest watch lists. That chant makes my nip hard. I ordered this one super fast. There's so many catchy tunes at the moment.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, it's not gonna bring people to a crashing end. Oh dear.
Okay, as Chewie takes off, did anyone else see the Wee Wookie on One News tonight? Did anyone else see the Wee Wookie on One News tonight? I did. And I messaged the Wee Wookie and he went, "What?" So I guess it's probably only right and appropriate to wait for the Wee Wookie to come back. Or maybe he's coming back.
No.
Yes, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
You can't. Okay, you can hear me. It's defaulting to my phone camera in a different
good.
room. That's fun.
While you sort yourself out,
I'm going to restart and I'm going to come back. One sec.
While we sort yourself out, we'll go on to a different story. I got a short story here about Christopher Hipkins, and I was actually quite shocked with what I heard on this show, the Big Herald News. Is someone it features a couple of times tonight, but with Christopher Hipkins, it's one question. And the reason I wanted to show this tonight was I was utterly shocked. Like, Ryan Bridges has said some stupid things in his past. We've been following him since the AM show. He has said some stupid things. But this is one of the more stupid things he's ever said. Where, and I'll play the whole clip, but as a heads up, where he literally says, he doesn't use these words, so that's probably not literally. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, that's better, prison is a good place for people with mental health issues. Now, he doesn't think he says that, but when you hear the question that he asks Christopher Hipkins, that's the question, and that's what he's saying. Let's have a listen.
I mean, do you accept if somebody is nuts and punches paramedics in the face, if they are behind bars, they're not punching paramedics in the face, are they?
Well, somehow they... Do you really think that the solution to mental health is to lock up people with mental health problems?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is...
No, but that's just what you said. That's literally just what you said. Should we go back and just listen to it one more time? You just literally said, if someone's nuts, I think is the word you used, if we put them in jail, they're not going to hurt anyone else. This is the question that this person asked. I'll play it again so Chewie can hear it.
That they need more protection. I mean, do you accept if somebody is nuts and punches paramedics in the face, if they are behind bars, they're not punching paramedics in the face, are they?
Well, somehow they... Do you really think that the solution to mental health is to lock up people with mental health problems?
Well, no, but what I'm saying is...
Well, that's what you've asserted.
No,
Yes.
no.
What you just said, Ryan.
Yes, it is, Ryan.
What I'm asking you, are we at a point as a society where it doesn't matter anymore whether they're mad, bad or sad? If crime is at a point where paramedics are getting punched in the face at call-outs, then something has to be done about it, and it's not having paramedics continually punched in the face.
So if
Is
you
it
look at
crime,
it, so
though?
what have the government done here? If someone has willfully assaulted a paramedic, they can already be charged with assault. They can already be subject to the sort of sentences that the government are talking about in this legislation. What's the reason that they're not in many cases? It's because of the underlying mental health issues. Introducing a new category of offence, which they also won't end up being prosecuted for because of their state of mental distress. It's not going to change one thing for those frontline paramedics.
Exactly.
We've got to focus on dealing with the problem. If we want those paramedics to be safer, then let's deal with the underlying thing that's making them not safe.
Appreciate your time this morning, Chris. So last time we came...
Now, I do want to have a look at one other thing to do with that, Chewie. The one other thing was, you know what we haven't done, and it's to my detriment, I apologise, we haven't really looked up what it means for, I don't know why we're saying first, I keep wanting to say first offenders, first responders.
First responders.
I don't know why we keep using that word. Maybe it's a fair word to use because it encapsulates a whole bunch of people. But it's what it is, right? So how bad is this issue? And who is going to get these extra sentences? Now, we just heard Ryan Bridge basically go, well, if they're a bit nuts, if they're locked up, then they can't be nuts next weekend. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but it is actually what he just asked. They'll be in prison being nuts. They won't be out on the road being nuts. But I found this story, and this is just an example. This is from last year in July, about an ambulance officer being assaulted. So this is what we've been talking about. Why are they going to be in control of their capacities? People who are doing this. I'll just read this to you. A man assaulted one ambulance officer and made sexually offensive comments to another as they tried to treat him in downtown Queenstown. The two Hatohone St John volunteers were responding to a call out after a member of the public became concerned at seeing Christchurch man, and they've got his name there, he's 32, vomiting and stumbling in the resort town CBD about 6 p.m. on September 3rd. After initially lying down in the ambulance, the heavily intoxicated man became uncooperative and abusive towards the male ambulance officer, police said. He then stood up, shoved the victim in the abdomen with both hands and got out of the ambulance, and then cried offensive comments of a sexual nature to a female officer. Now, obviously no one's going to defend that, but what we talked about last night is exactly the situation we're saying. Not in control of his faculties. Drunk, mental health issue, high, a rage incident because of something that's just happened. child's just died, wife's just kicked them out of the house, whatever. So you're not going to be, people, put it this way, people who are in that moment of themselves altogether are not going to be the ones attacking ambulance officers. There's going to be a reason for it, a reason that's probably on somewhat uncontrollable, probably. I'm not to give permission to commit an assault on an ambulance officer, but it makes sense. And what Chippy's just said is, what the courts will do is they'll take all of those things into account anyway. So putting a new legislation in, the courts will still go, oh, well, he's in the middle of a psychosis. And so that's a mitigating factor for sentencing.
Yep.
So again, we come back to the situation where this is a headline, and all it's going to do for this government is gives them the ability to go tough on crime. There's one other thing, Chewie. I wanted to know more about what number of assaults were happening. And it's actually quite hard to find the information. I did a search for it and I got back to a Christmas time article from 2016. It is a long time ago. But then it was assaults on ambulance officers on the rise. But there's one thing that's particularly interesting in it to me. In the past year, St John's frontline ambulance officers have been physically and verbally abused nearly 3,000 times. Now that's horrific. That's 10 times a day. But I want to know from this government what they're classing as abusive, because Bay of Plenty officers have been assaulted 227 times in the past 9 months. Of these, 162 were verbal and 65 were physical. So a quarter in the Bay of Plenty, give or take, a quarter, a third in the Bay of Plenty were the kind of assaults we were talking about, the physical assaults. Again, this is not to give anyone a defence, and this is not to say, yeah, you're okay to punch an ambulance officer. I want to see the data. Is this actually, like we're being told that this is important. What's the data? I haven't heard the government come out with any data yet. Now, I may have missed it. Fair, don't get to see everything. But it seems to me that what the ambulance, and I guess officially the numbers are talking about assaults, they include verbal assaults. Not okay, don't do that. But very different from a physical assault. And we've got examples of people who do assault an officer drunk, out of control. So I don't think we've got the full picture yet. And I'm not, by the way, let me make this clear, I'm not suggesting it's not a serious problem. What I'm saying is we need to see the detail. We need to see the data. Like, if this wasn't a big deal, and I'm not suggesting that, is this literally just headlines, or are they solving a problem, and is this the solution for it? I want to see that. Chewie.
Well, that's the key part of all of this legislation that they've announced this week, all of this tough on crime stuff, is they keep on saying, well, we've got to get on top of it, we've got to let people know that it's okay, and we've got to propose a deterrent. You know, that there's got to be consequences and that sort of thing. And it's like, well, if you're wanting to stop something, tell me how those things stop this. How does it stop an ambulance officer being assaulted? Because as it has been pointed all the way through, it's someone in crisis, it's someone that's drunk, it's someone that's not thinking straight. It's going to happen. So for them to say, well, this is so it doesn't happen as much, that's not the case. I want to hear how you're keeping ambulance officers safe.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
know, are
agreed.
they doing? Are they solo driving an ambulance on a busy weekend? You know, that sort of thing. Being an ambulance officer is hard, because you are always dealing with someone at the absolute fucking worst.
So here's something else. I would like to know, like the example we just gave, which is just one example, alcohol was an issue. Now, GARC says ban alcohol. Obviously, we can't do that. But have you noticed with subsequent governments, they will never address the issue around things like alcohol and stuff that are a bane on society. It's a common thread that runs
through this, right?
Yeah, and they cause so many problems in society, but because of they are already a part of society. And so, like, easy to attack weed, you know, easy to attack meth, and you should attack meth, you know, like I'm not standing up for it. Easy to attack those kinds of things, but something that's been, you know, rugby racing beer, it's been part of our culture for a long time, they leave alone. alcohol, I would like to know how many of these incidents then actually are alcohols involved in them, because then perhaps we can start to look at how do we solve the problem of alcohol use in New Zealand, and maybe that would then solve the problem of these first responders getting attacked. You know, it's like if you're going to put it this way, if you're going to have the conversation, let's have the conversation and let's figure it out, because there is obviously everyone would say we need to solve the problem and we need to protect people, and there might be a little bit of got to do this before you can do this, but ultimately we want to do both. That's a full conversation.
I think an even shorter and more to the point conversation is exactly what Hipkins said during that interview. If someone assaults an ambulance officer, there is already a charge for that assault.
Yeah.
You know, so does adding another charge change anything? I think it's pretty clear that the answer to that is no. So then, is this government just trying to be seen to be doing anything, knowing that the discussion about this will very simply resolve around so you're for ambulance officers being assaulted?
Yeah.
At its most basic, dumbest binary. No, I'm not. I am, what I am for is legislations and laws that are clear, implementable. You know, that if they're brought to court, they'll be effective.
Yep.
But don't gussy something up and say it's a deterrent when it's not going to be a deterrent. It can be a consequence. You know, and I think if someone genuinely assaults a first responder, it should certainly be there. But my fear is that this is going to come down on to people that are already not at their best. And it's just a tougher, meaner charge that is going to go, hey, remember that bad time that you had? Well, guess what? It's fucking worse now, isn't it? And everybody's just going to go, well, you know, I've never punched an ambulance officer. I have no empathy for anybody going through a tough time. I have no real life experience in this. I am for it. Because crime bad. No one's saying that crime is good. No one is saying that ambulance officers knew what they signed up for. You know, that's a bullshit argument, and I won't have it. But yeah, if this government is dressing up this as like, well, at least we're doing something, if the something you are doing is pointless, doesn't achieve its aims, and is not backed up by any data at all, I think that deserves to be called out.
I think you had a really good saying last week. I can't remember what we were talking about, but with that whole, at least we're doing something. So if a person's drowning and you throw them, you know, a masonry a cinder block. Well, we're doing something, but it might be the wrong thing. And the
Are you just saying I should just let that person drown? At least I did something. I threw them a cinder block.
The thing that frustrates me a little bit about Luxon and his, well, I don't care, is that he sold his whole message pre-election on we're gonna drop the dumb stuff. Like literally what it is. We're going to get rid of all the dumb stuff. And now he's putting in stuff where he's going, I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't care. I mean, that to me sounds like it's certainly a dumb way to get into it. And it may end up being dumb stuff. And if you don't know, that means what you could be doing might be more harmful than good because you don't know. So that's a possibility. And that frustrates me.
Yeah. I would love to see him get raked over the coals for these comments of I don't care. I don't care, don't have the data. Frankly, it's not important. We're just doing something. This is a man, and I knew as soon as he said it that it was bullshit, because of course it was. He said on election night that he would lead for all New Zealanders. It is blatantly clear that that is untrue. That is just the first of many lies that has come out of that man's head. So please, media, call him on this. This rhetoric and narrative that he's got, that it doesn't, like, data and proof doesn't matter, efficacy doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to care about the results or the downstream effects. Doesn't even need to consider them. Just fucking shoot from the hip, mate. Why do we need a government? Like, why do we need parties? Why do we need consensus? Just you come up with something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Bizarre stuff.
Let's do some chats that are in there. JC and the Pigeon Cat. Now I'm re-watching all the Anthony Bourdain parts unknown, and I blame Chewie.
You are
Bird
welcome.
says the IDF hacked your camera, Chewie. That's what actually happened there. Ryan Bridges.
is it,
I'm just
bro?
asking, are we at a point in society where we should just do fascism? Yeah, that was such a weird. Like he literally said, as I paraphrase, so you can't say literally, but he said, if they're nuts. If they're locked up, then they can't be nuts again. It's like,
They should just be in a camp.
yeah. Over Red Rover, I struggle to understand how a word derived from nucleus can be pronounced according to nuclear. Okay. Now, who else saw Chewie on One
I
News?
just want to say, Ryan Bridge has the intellectual depth of a children's fucking Kmart paddling pool.
It's not very
He's
deep,
got
Chewie.
wonderful hair, which is why I assume he's doing the job that he does. But yeah, not the brain trust.
So I was watching One News tonight, and I took a bit of a freeze frame. Did anyone else take a freeze frame? I took a freeze frame.
Ah,
News tonight.
yay.
Anyone else take a freeze frame for One News tonight? I did.
I'm really glad I'm not wearing my red shirt today.
Yeah. Well, we could wear the same things here. I was wearing that grey hoodie tonight, and I went, no, I can't. I've just talked about this. I can't wear this again. So people say to me, well, how do you keep that white so clean? You know how I keep it so clean? I pull it on about 60 seconds before we start, and as soon as the show's finished, I take it off, and that's the only time I wear it, and that's how I keep it so white, because I am a pig.
Speaking
it is
of
sort
the
of.
pigs, look at the cuddle that I was getting there.
Did you get his number?
No, but I was whispering, like he was telling me to get back, and I was whispering in his ear going, I will, but not yet.
Yeah. So this comes up in this story, and I know this is a bit Dunedin centric, but it's also evidentiary. It's also a part of the conversation around how this government has been treating the health system, etc. So it's an update on Dunedin Hospital and what's going to happen.
Works on Dunedin's new $1.9 billion hospital is restarting after a series of delays and public backlash.
Even that, the delays, Chewie, you know, they say within building, the best time to start building something is yesterday. So them delaying this, whatever it's been, 8 to 12 months of no work is immediately going to cost the rest of the work more money, because the best time to start building was yesterday.
The downsized design is now due to be completed by 2031. Sam Ollie has
And then they'll start working on the next design to make it fit for the next 50 years. So cheers for that, National.
the latest.
In a public corridor of Dunedin's ageing hospital this winter, claims of a pipe directing leaking water from the roof into a wheelie bin. Southerners are sick of scenes like this.
It's a bit scary and frightening for the community.
ED is really, really hectic and crammed.
It definitely hasn't had the maintenance that it should have had on it.
Years of delays and project downsizing have caused
Oh, bring back memories, Chewie. Look at that.
I'm in there somewhere.
Same.
40,000 people.
Yeah, brilliant.
prolonged outrage, with tens of thousands hitting the street in the past, and the minister even needs
Hey.
Hey,
Hey.
it's me.
Hey. The minister.
What did
even
the
needing-
minister need?
Oh, let's have a look.
What did the
with
minister need?
tens of thousands hitting the street in the past, and the minister even needing a police escort. A decade after rebuild plans
You're a bad man, Chewie. We just all now know that for sure.
started, the new site has seen very little construction.
It was paused for a number of months. The previous scope would have meant that the cost of this
Shit,
building
that
could
means he
have
was
gone
in
out to around.
town.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Would have been interesting, eh? But you know, I think maybe I thought I maybe saw him. I was driving along the road and I looked out my window, and all I could see at the height of my window was an orange hat going past, just like that, just at the height of my window, and I couldn't see who was under it. So maybe he did walk past my car today. It's been paused for a number of months. Why? Because, okay, do you know the real answer? Because we wanted to give landlords $3 to $4 billion and $13 billion in tax cuts. That's actually the honest answer as to why it's been paused for a number of months. We needed to find the money to finish a downscaled version of this, which is like, yay, thanks, National. I really look forward to another government getting in and then immediately start planning for the upgraded hospital to actually be fit for purpose for the next 50 years. That's what I'm looking forward to. Thanks for that.
$3 billion.
But the good news,
And here we are today celebrating construction back underway.
the bill's
Oh, you
11
fucking
floors high.
skis.
The government setting itself a timeline. Over the next 6 months, pile caps and remedial works will be finished. Then
Hang on. Can I just say one thing? That means they're not doing any work. Because remember,
Remedial works.
the first kind of 4 years of this project where National spent pre-election saying, and not a single brick was laid. No, but they were doing all the stuff you're going to be doing now. They were doing all that stuff. So there was lots of work going on. Yeah, you're right. A single brick may not have been laid, but lots of the planning and the remediation work and the taking down of Cadbury and all those were all happening when you guys were saying that Labor did nothing. So that means what you're doing now, according to your standards, is you're still not working on it, is nothing.
structure work will begin at the start of next year before installing base isolators in July, with steel construction starting in August.
There's obviously been a letter of intent signed between Health of New Zealand and CPB, which is a good step forward, and that final construction negotiation is currently underway.
The new inpatient building is the largest health infrastructure investment in New Zealand history and will cover 70,000 square metres on the site behind me of the former Cadbury factory. The hospital treats patients from across the Lower South Island, a 6-hour round trip from Cromwell for Roger Driver.
The old hospital is where I'm visiting today, and it is in a very bad state of repair. My wife has treatment monthly, and we've been coming for 5 years every month.
As a stopgap, Health New Zealand is spending $23 million to keep the old building safe and functional, with waterproofing also part of ongoing maintenance.
To actually ensure that it is fit for purpose while construction of this building is
It's
being
not
done.
fit for
The new
purpose.
outpatient
Well, it'll be fit for purpose the day it's built, and then it will be out of date the 24 hours later, because that population growth of 24 hours is all of a sudden going to put it behind again.
building next door, closing in on completion, will open next year, with the inpatient block set to be done by 2031. Sam Ollie, One News.
There you go. Sam Ollie,
This-
One News.
This whole thing from start to finish is a debacle. I love the fact that we can see our jellyfish mayor standing next to Bob the Builder cosplayer, Simeon Brown. Like, every step of the way, and I'm going to include Labor in this,
Of course.
it was cuts. Both governments did studies into building it. Both governments knew what needed to be done. Once they finalised that, they started chipping away at it. Labor gave a gift to National in the form of cutting this hospital. But they did that knowing that if they didn't do it, then National would hit them with, look at how expensive this is. None of them looked at the actual thing that they were trying to do, which was build a fit-for-purpose hospital for the lower half of the mainland for decades to come.
For the next 50 years.
By the time that this building or this complex gets finished, we will be behind again. From what they're saying about the beds, the chronic beds, the emergency beds, the dementia beds, all of these things, there is less capacity in this hospital than there is in the old one.
Yeah.
I saw that there was a public meeting in Wanaka over the weekend where government ministers were grilled on the lack of healthcare in that area. That is some of what this hospital is meant to do the heavy lifting on. It is the South Island being screwed over again. And they're happy to say, hey, look, we needed to pause to make a study. While you're pausing, money is still being spent. That was costing $1 million I think it was $1 million a week to do nothing to pause things. And CPB, the company that they've got involved with, well, you look at their background of delays, of cost overruns, of shoddy fucking work. So for them to celebrate the fact that they've decided to pull finger again is just such a, like, just piss on my cornflakes. Like 2031, there's been so much fucking around. I just want whatever government, if you want to talk about bipartisan government and decision making for infrastructure projects, I just wish that both of these major parties would put their ideologies apart and go, we need to build a hospital, we need to just agree on the plans and push forward.
Yeah.
Get it done, because that is the cheapest way to do it.
Yep, you're right. Let's have a look at some super chats. Come on, Chewie. What you mean to say is Ryan Bridges is about as sharp as a sack full of soup.
He's got a perfectly smooth brain. There's not a lump or a bump or a ridge or a
We're gonna see
all
him again tonight.
thoughts slide off. He just reads a teleprompter.
Arvids wants to know if I denounce you because you're a bad man. I refuse to answer that question. It's diversionary from the real issue at hand, and that is, I have a photo of Chewie where he looks like a hillbilly with a big long beard. That's the issue at hand. And Arvids, again, big people doing slightly downgraded jobs. The thing about this is, and this kind of, it's the same for the ferries, you know, and probably the same for Nelson Hospital and Whangarei Hospital. It's like, if these guys lock us into a downgraded version, if Labour, Greens, Te Pāti Māori were to get back in at the next election, are they able to break out of that plan and go back? I mean, like, you know, blame Labour here a little bit, because remember, it was those are the guys who first downgraded it, but then Luxon said we'll build it exactly as the original specifications, and then they degraded it even more. So there's some blood on Labour's hands in this as well, because obviously it was in such early stages, National could get out of it easily because pipes and slabs and stuff hadn't been laid. But if they get to a point of actually putting up iron next year, like steel framing, I hope that there's enough of the ability within the planning that Labour can go, we are going back to the original. Like, obviously you're not going to take steel framing down, but work within it and still get for Dunedin and the Lower South Island what it actually needs.
And they can do that. So one of the and again, both of them are fucking guilty of this, of saying we're going to build the building but not open certain floors to save money. And I just want to go, but you know, capacity is a concern.
Yeah.
Like, why build the room and not complete it? Why build a floor and not use it when capacity is an option?
Yeah.
To save money? Like, you know that this hospital serves an enormous geographic area. Like, one of the things that we have here is that, like, the people that have driven up from Invercargill or down from Oamaru or in from Cromwell, Wanaka, all of that sort of area, is that there's a local charity that has basically basic cheap accommodation near the hospital to make that easier for them, because they can't stay in the hospital. You know, they're outpatients, but they've still got to do this like multi-hour drive round trip, get treatment, which might kick the shit out of them, and then they can apply to stay in this place called Oamaru House. And that's a great idea. Why isn't it part of the hospital? Why is it being run by a charity? But that building is going away. Like, then the supermarket who surrounds it is knocking it down for more car parking space, which tells you more about this society than I think it's supposed to. But we're not thinking about how these things can be used, how taxpayer money can be used effectively. Again, it's a multi-decade project. The cost, within certain parameters, does not matter. Build the hospital. people need it. We know that there's capacity issues. We know that it is not fit for purpose. It is 25 years past its best before date. The staff in it have been screaming from the rooftops that it's not fit for purpose, and they've been ignored. Yeah, it's interesting, right? This Omari House.
Well, it says it's beyond repair. So I mean,
but I mean that's a charity,
yeah.
a charity finding a solution,
yeah,
outside of the Ministry of Health to a real problem.
It makes me think of Ronald McDonald houses in Auckland, but they're for kids' families, and they can stay in those if they're at Starship sort of thing. But I'd never heard of that, Chewie. This is the first time I've heard of that, so that's why I was interested in what you had to say. That's actually it's something that should be supported. So if this has now gone away, we need to find a way to get some, either for the health system to do something properly. Because you are right, this is the difference, right? Like, I mean, I grew up in Auckland, so of course Auckland Hospital is the main hospital, but there's also North Shore, and there's also I was going to say Middlemore. So they're around the place. So pretty much you have a hospital within driving distance of your home. But in somewhere like Dunedin or somewhere, like Christchurch, that might service up to Nelson and back, or there's places that are fed by rural areas, that immediately means there will be patients and families coming in that have to then stay. So I'd never thought of it before. So
And
I'm
you'd think
interested.
our Ministry of Health, the central planners at government, would think of something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the other things that was taken away from the hospital plans was car parking. Because why are they including car parking in a hospital? I don't know, because people drive their cars to a hospital.
Just as a side. Leonie says that building needed replacing 15 years ago. So, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
But the need is still there. The need is still there, and the need needs to have a source. Needs to be something to source it. So,
and I would just love. I've said this before. I just want to reiterate it. My standing here for whoever is in government is, when it is a project like this, don't leave it to someone to fucking just do a building binge, an infrastructure catch up. Because this is what happens. All of our hospitals age out at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, just consider the fact that if you are in government, you need to be building a hospital.
We heard, I can't remember what the stats were, and obviously it hasn't happened in the last couple of years, but we had a period in the last decade where there was 100,000 people a year coming back to New Zealand. And I remember whoever it was that we were talking to said that requires a new hospital every year to service those people. And we hadn't had a new hospital in decades, sort of thing. So, yeah, when you think about population increase, that natural increase, but also migration, we certainly don't want to, where do we want to spend our money? In places that are going to look after New Zealanders and new New Zealanders for their lives. Schools and hospitals and, places for doctors and nurses to work, and I don't know. Seems pretty obvious to me, but then I'm a moron. All right. There was just a quick chat that came in here from Lurchi. We should chase this up. Palestinian network Aotearoa announces referral to ICJ citing Luxon, Peters, Seymour, Collins, Radix Rocket Labs as complicit in Zionist genocide. Wow.
I saw that press release not long before I came home, actually. So, yeah, 103-page document that they've submitted to the ICJ.
I'm sorry we missed that one. That would have been worth chasing today for a conversation. If there happens to be someone from the Palestinian Network Aotearoa watching, email us, Big Hairy News, if you want to come and join us, and I'll send you a link right now. Happy to do it. And also one more here from Riwai who says, Mickey No Boats would describe it as a Ferrari, and what you are getting is a second-hand Corolla, when the actual hospital you're getting is a Facebook Marketplace piece of shit. Or what we call it, a Temu hospital. It's a Temu hospital. And apparently I am being anti-tumetic by hassling you, something like that. let's do this one, shall we? Because this is a bit of a conversation, ongoing conversation around the media. I don't know very much about this this young contributor. Her name is Fiona Lalli. She is part of the revolutionary communists, and once again, a brilliantly well-spoken person. Part of the conversation around Bob Vylan that I want to get into today, this is what this is about, is it seems that a bunch of the pro-Israel, pro-Zionist commentators are now going back to day one. It's all about denouncing October 7th. It's all this. And it seems that some of the people who are talking on behalf of Palestinian innocent civilians are doing that thing where they're not condemning the actions. And I'll let them speak for themselves, but it feels to me like we're at a point now where whether you do or don't condemn the actions of Hamas on October 7th, and for people who don't know us, we have condemned them since day one, actually the amount of carnage, genocide, bombing that Israel has done is a disproportionately large response to that day. So it's actually like you don't need to denounce it anymore, because like on day one, it was like, what are they going to do? Of course we denounce it. On day 700 or whatever we're at right now, must be getting close to that, nearly 2 years. That this is now a diversionary tactic for the conversation. That's what it is. To make people stop again. Remember, we were saying this a year ago about Piers Morgan. No one was saying, do you denounce the actions of the IDF dropping bombs onto civilians? But all of those people like Piers Morgan were saying, do you denounce Hamas? And it feels like we're going back there. And it feels like the smart communicators like this lady, Fiona Lalli, are going, you're not going to divert me from the important issue at hand. So let's have a bit of a look. I mean, I don't know if we'll play the whole thing. There's about 6 minutes, but I was trying to get a couple of short grabs, but there's sort of good stuff all the way through. We'll see how we go with watching some of it or most of it or all of it, and what this young activist has to say. By the way, the person she's mostly arguing with is a GB host, the female GB host. Her name is Nana Akua. And she thinks BLM is a far-left Marxist pressure group, and she criticised people for taking the knee against racism. So the woman that she's going to argue with, that's what she's about.
So Bob Vylan, obviously now being condemned by multiple members of Parliament, congressmen. There's, attempts in America to now have their visas revoked. They said they were anti-Semitic comments by lots of anti-Semitism campaign groups. The irony of all of this is in 2020, Bob Vylan were supposedly giving racism the middle finger at concerts against racism. Do you think they are just purely shameless, looking to get 15 minutes of fame?
So obviously he's implying that Bob Vylan is being racist. That's what he's implying. This guy's a moron. Like, you can see if people on like Fox News or Sky News or have a certain look, they get hired. He's a moron, because what he's saying is he's supposed to be anti-racist. How can he be critical of the IDF? That's the point he's making.
Now, I think I'm really glad that this has happened, because it's giving us an opportunity to expose the IDF and say, what is the IDF? The IDF is a monstrous imperialist army that has killed over 100,000 Palestinians on behalf of Israel, and it is committing barbaric acts every single day. And the way that the media has reported on this has been astounding, but it actually makes people feel sick, because, there was horrific violence over the weekend, but it wasn't at Glastonbury. It was in Palestine. It was soldiers from the IDF consciously shooting Palestinians who are queuing up for aid. And they do that on purpose.
Okay, so
in
you
fact,
are
they are
aware.
instructed to do that.
So
they are instructed
Fiona,
to do
you
that.
are aware.
That's disgusting.
You are aware that Hamas have instructed the death of Palestinians who are assisting with the aid delivery. I mean,
Now, I haven't heard this. I suspect it's a talking point lie, or maybe it's an IDF talking point. I'll Google it. I'll look it up. But the point that Nana is making is that no. That's Hamas shooting them. That's basically what she's saying. It's not IDF shooting them. That's Hamas shooting them.
It's a fact. You are aware of that. So that's
a fact.
No. I'm telling you a fact. Hamas are doing that, and they're killing their own people, and they're urging others to kill any Palestinians who are helping with the aid delivery.
No,
are you aware
of that?
That's
not true. And when the mainstream media and people like yourself say these things, everything you do acts as justification for the IDF and for Netanyahu. And so you're a bit like Keir Starmer, actually.
Can I take
Keir Starmer also does
I don't think the audience will agree with that. I mean, they know.
I thought you'd find that funny.
Can I just take a slightly nuanced approach?
What you do when you say these things is line up with the rest of Western imperialism, which is to say that Israel has the right to do what it is doing. Israel has the right to genocide the Palestinian people.
First of all, it's not been confirmed as a genocide. Even the International Court of Justice have not called it that. So you may see it that way. That is your choice.
But do you see what I mean? We're back to day one.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
We're back to day.
Actually, it's not technically a genocide. I don't know. When you've got a list of, I think, 27 internationally renowned scholars of the study of genocide saying, yeah, it's a fucking genocide. I'm sorry, what's her name? Nana?
Nana Akua. Nah.
Yeah,
but yeah, this is what I predict is going to happen over the next few weeks. It's back to day one for them. They're back to their talking points. They're back to condemn. They're back to no genocide. They're back to right to defend themselves. And people like Fiona are doing brilliantly at saying I'm not going to jump to the music you're playing. I'm going to stay and sing my own song, and I'm not going to get distracted. We'll keep going with it because it's brilliant.
But secondly, I just noticed that you've not condemned Hamas, and you keep
for fuck's sake.
Like out of nowhere. So she was supposed to sit down and go.
I've just noticed.
She was supposed to sit down and go, "Hey, thanks for having me. I condemn Hamas." What's your first question? Like, she hasn't.
This is dreadful.
Out of nowhere.
For Hamas. Are you saying that what happened on October the 7th was not acceptable?
When you do this,
no, I'm asking
another people in the media do this. Again, it is to justify. Nothing justifies genocide against the Palestinian people. I'm here to tell you exactly what I think.
But could you just answer
I'm not going to stand here and condemn Hamas. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stand here and condemn the IDF, the occupation, and the role of Western imperialism in that entire.
Fiona, hang on 1 second, just 1 moment.
I am here to condemn Keir Starmer and David Lammy and the British government and British imperialism's role in this occupation and in this genocide.
You cannot sit there and seriously say you will not condemn Hamas, who have
I can
brought...
say whatever I like.
Well, you can, but I tell you what, the British public are watching you. The British public are watching you, and if you will not condemn terrorists, people who have caused absolute chaos upon the Palestinian people, the ones that started this conflict, can you see the disdain the British public, the people of Palestine, Jewish people will have for you?
That's what I'm saying. It felt like we could kind of get out here, but Fiona just keeps on hitting them.
You're right. It's a rewind.
Yeah.
It's a rewind.
Yeah.
To 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm having a stroke.
Well, let's let Fiona do the dirty work. Well, it's not dirty work, but let her keep on hitting because she keeps on hitting. So the guy, the whatever he's supposed to be, has said, "Are you seriously think you can sit here and not condemn them?" That's where we left off.
Happy to condemn terrorists. Let's start with Keir.
Condemn Hamas.
Let's start with Keir Starmer. Let's start with David Lammy.
Let's start with the people that started this war.
And let's talk about the IDF. Let's talk about
Who started the war on October the 7th?
I'll tell you, it began in 1948 with the forced expulsion
it did
of
not.
hundreds of thousands of Palestinians.
We can get into a historical discussion. It's not worthwhile.
You are so correct. In fact, the British were entirely involved in setting up the Zionist state. They were entirely involved in that. So British imperialism historically is responsible for those crimes, and today it is still responsible for those crimes. And what makes you so angry, actually, is the fact that more people support people like Bob Vylan. More people in Britain actually want to see an end to the occupation. They don't support Britain sending arms to Israel.
What people want, Fiona, is an end to war.
Enrages you.
They don't support Bob Vylan spouting out vile anti-Semitism. I don't want you to sit here and call the British public racist and anti-Semitic, because they do not support Bob. We just said the vast majority of people support Bob.
I'm just imagining.
Who are these idiots?
Well, possibly what they are is a new version of a Muppet. In the old days, you used to put your hand up the backside of the Muppet to work the mouth. Now they talk into the earpiece. And there could be people, because Fiona's kicking ass. She is winning this and she is controlling the studio. So who knows what's going on in their earpieces right now about saying anything at all. Do you want to watch the last 90 seconds, Chewie? Do you want to feel like it? We can do it if you want. Do you want to keep seeing?
Go on. I want to see. They're hitting all the right-wing greatest hits at the moment. So I just want to see what else they've got in their bag.
Yep. All right.
Bob Vylan said, you just said that, and they do not overwhelmingly.
I think you're upset about
yes,
the
I'm
fact
upset that
that
there's a man who's been given a platform
I
to spout
think
out.
you're not upset about 100,000 Palestinians.
Who said
killed.
that?
You're not
You're
upset
putting words
about the
into my
fact that
mouth.
the IDF killed
I don't want
children.
children to die.
Fiona.
Don't shout at me,
Fiona.
please. Yes.
Can you not condemn Hamas?
I've told you.
No, but I'm asking, it's a yes or no.
Okay.
So don't do...
I've actually already answered that question.
So
is there
a yes or no to that?
And the other reason why you guys act
isn't.
like this is because you want to intimidate people from speaking out about the Palestinian movement. You want to criminalise the entire Palestinian movement.
Yep.
In fact, today there are activists on trial. The Filton 18, they're on trial, and the state is using counter-terrorism laws against them for the role that they have played to disrupt the Israeli war machine.
You're here on GBNews giving your opinion out on the airwaves.
And you're telling us what we think.
Yes,
You
don't
don't
know.
Tell us we're scared of
Fiona,
you.
you don't
Tell
know
us
what
you're
we
scared.
think.
You know, this is the ridiculous thing, isn't it? Tell us we're scared. We having you on here to give your opinion to the British public. What I'm not going to sit here and do is agree with you just because you think I should.
No,
which is what all of you lot at Glastonbury think we should all sit there going, yes, I agree with your argument. I don't agree with your argument in the slightest.
We're definitely not going to agree.
Although I guarantee you he couldn't verbalise why he didn't agree. He can, but he couldn't verbalise why.
But what I'm pointing out is that I think the reason that you are so shocked by what I'm saying, and a lot of the mainstream media over the weekend is so shocked that other people are chanting with Bob Vylan, is because you are so out of touch with the real mood in society, and the real mood in society is on the side of the Palestinians.
The problem we're having here,
and you've lost that whole debate, and I think that's
Fiona, the problem we're having here
again.
is you continuously tell us what we think, but you don't listen to what we're thinking. So if you would just listen a bit more,
the genocide of the Palestinians.
If you listen, let me finish. Sorry. If you listen to what people have to say, then perhaps instead of telling me what I think, you might listen to what I think.
We watched that video the other day with Candace Owens, where she spent so long telling the person that she wouldn't let her talk than talking. It's exactly what's happening right now. She's telling her to stop telling her what she's thinking rather than just listen to what she's thinking, and then she's not saying what she's thinking. It's a very interesting tactic.
And that's, I think, this is a real problem with your argument. You don't listen. You don't listen to what people think. You have no idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
And at no point did she then tell her what she thinks.
That's so condescending.
Look, can I sound a little bit sort of 50s daddish? These young women of colour coming out of the UK are fucking fire when it goes on this conversation. Like, no patronising, nothing like that. I'm just like, who better to jump to force the patriarchal, primarily white mainstream media to jump through fucking hoops than young women of colour? And I'm for it, man. I want to see these guys more and more and more. And so well spoken and so keeping their cool. It wasn't her that lost her cool. She said at one stage, like the mum. She was like the mum. Well, listen, the reason you were so upset, it was fine. It was complete.
The reason you're upset was devastating.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Look, we've highlighted, as you said, a couple of devastatingly effective communicators who just so happen to be young women of colour. I actually thought one of them was someone that was in probably one of my favourite photos of all time. But it's not, because there are more. There are more out there. Have you heard of Sophia Khan?
The name rings a bell, but no, I'll say no because I don't.
She's an artist and an activist in the UK, and this image popped up a few years where she stood up to the front line of a racist protest from the English Defence League, the EDL, And it is one of my favorite images.
Yeah, I have seen
because
that.
it has the police there being utterly ineffective, and she is just staring down this English racist with just the smirk on her face of like, I will outlast you, brother.
Can I also say one thing that I love about that more than anything almost is she's taller than him. That's awesome. Little man syndrome.
Hand in the pocket, staring right at him, smirk on her face. It's just that this is the thing. These women have come through the system, have seen everything that the system wants to. They know how the media operates. To go on a show like that, which they're not there to get a discussion out of her. No. They're there to set her off. They want an outburst, and she didn't give it to them. And they look like petulant children throwing their toys and going, oh, actually, no, I'm not mad. You're mad. You're mad, saying that I'm mad. You know, it was just like, I think she is 100% right. And I think this is the most glaring thing as I've looked at media from the UK over the last couple of days, is the glaring disconnect from the general public.
Yeah.
The media is really hitting these obvious Israeli talking points, and they're just crawling over themselves to downplay the mass movement aspect of this. Glastonbury is huge. And I think as much as they're talking about what Bob Vylan said, as much as what they're saying about Kneecap or Amel and the Sniffers said, what really scares them with that footage is the sheer amount of people waving Palestinian flags, giving a shit about what's happening in Gaza, and very, very clearly identifying here that the side that is causing the most harm, the most death, that is causing the genocide is Israel, and just going, I don't care what our historical links are. I don't care if we consider these people an ally. This country is the bad guy based on their words and actions.
Especially actions.
Because we see it. We see it in our phones. We see it. We don't see it in the mainstream media. We see it in the alternative, in the peer-to-peer media. And that disconnect of what we're seeing and where we're seeing it is showing us what's happening. And they can't shape that narrative.
And
they're flailing.
And this, right? This, I don't know if this is the same video you had, but this. I mean, they say a picture says 1,000 words. This is, look at that. Look at that hole. Do you know what that hole is?
That's a 2,000-pound bomb. That's
where it landed. So this, to me, and in fact, we've seen this, but look, that shot there. I mean, how far can we see? Literally as far as the eye can see. Every building is damaged. For some reason, that looks not as damaged, but you know, every building is damaged. And they can't hide this, because I'm on YouTube right now and I typed Gaza drone, and this is what you get.
And on some platforms, if you type that in, you're going to get other results as well, which are unpalatable. I'll say that much. But I want to talk about the capability of the Israelis here. The capability of the Israelis are they're able to hunt people for years and exactly hit their targets. They're able to put drones through someone's bedroom window thousands of miles away to get exactly who they want to get. So what's happening in Gaza is a choice.
Yeah.
They could decapitate Hamas leadership if they wanted to. They could take their time, hunt out the players, roll up their information networks. They have that capability. They also have the capability to absolutely decimate every population centre and move civilians from one end to the other and then back again, and then starve them, and then when they congregate, bomb them again, whether it's a cafe or a refugee centre or a hospital. Like, you cannot tell me, you condemn the actions of Hamas. It's not Hamas killing ambulance drivers, burying them in a hole in their vehicles in the desert, lying about it and then getting caught out in the lie. It's not Hamas that has been driving bulldozers over shackled prisoners. It is not Hamas, and this is the most egregious one that I have heard, that rounded up hospital workers from a hospital that they stormed, and they took away staff, physicians and nurses away from a ward of children in incubators, and they left them there to die and rot. Children in incubators. And we're still talking about Bob Vylan saying death to the IDF. I say we, the Western world.
Yeah. I saw something on Twitter today, and, trigger warnings for some words I'm about. I won't even say the words, but there was a tweet out there that went through my algorithm, not someone I follow, I don't know where it came from, but a picture of IDF soldiers using their shields as cover, whilst behind the shield, one of the IDF soldiers was forcing himself on a lady, and it said something like, the tweet said something like, but yeah, bad words from Bob Vylan. You know, it's like
rape, torture, child murder, targeting journalists, aid workers. There is no justification. Do you condemn Hamas?
Yeah,
Fuck
exactly.
off.
Yeah.
Would be
Good.
And this is why they don't put me on these panel shows, because I
Is that
would
the
not
only
have the composure.
Are you turning down their invites, are you? I say, no, not for me, not for me. I know, Chewie, there's a funny thing, though, just a little addendum to what you just said in a
I would
jest.
give them a hot 5 minutes of unbroadcastable content.
But I don't know, like this is, I know you're saying that in jest somewhat, but I actually don't know if I could return to mainstream media. Genuinely don't know if I could. Like I did a RNZ a few Mondays back with Jesse, and 2 or 3 times I'd be like, it's fucking awesome. And I was like, oh shit, it's really good. It's like I just don't know. I don't know if the parameters would work. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know. Kai Matara, GBNews equal gross bullshit news. Rewise says, okay, new sacks of soup. And again, Kai Matara says, does BBC mean BB's cretins? BB is net. Yes, we got that.
Look, there are stories that have come out today of people quitting the BBC because of this. And again,
because of Bob Vylan being broadcast.
Partly.
Because of what the BBC's done after it.
Because of the BBC's actions, editing, not broadcasting kneecap or, like, this is enough is enough moment for some people that work at the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, it is so blatant. The BBC has been an amazing organisation, and like I saw an interview with what's that? He's an British football.
Gary Lineker.
Don't know what is it. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Where he was talking about the BBC, and the interviewer was like, "Well, the BBC has to be impartial," and he goes, "No, the BBC needs to be accurate."
Yes.
Like, yes. And this is the thing, if you're confronted with a genocide, how can you be impartial?
Here we go.
You can't. You can be accurate.
Oh, I haven't read the story. I don't know what it says, but it's luckily we've got GBNews again. Gary Lineker made his stance clear on the controversy surrounding Bob Vylan's Glastonbury performance. The rap duo sparked outrage, yada, yada, yada. Where does it say the bit about? In a Sunday post, he recalled how his daughter had asked for healthier school dinners. Oh, I don't know. Probably shouldn't have just pulled up an article I hadn't pre-read. Anyway, he's a bit of a radical as Gary Lineker. He said some things in the past that he's got in trouble for at the BBC and had to kind of retract, but there've been some of them.
And there's a reason for that. Like, football is the working class entertainment. So a lot of those guys have come up through that career, and they're still hold to working class ideals. But this is the thing, is why is the BBC carrying so much water for the state of Israel? Why are they happy to sacrifice to an entire generation their credibility by just going, no, the sky here is green. Everybody agrees that it's green. And if you're pointing out that it's blue, well, then you're just, blah. You know, it makes no sense. Like that, I've seen a lot of criticism here of RNZ for being passive when talking about what's happening in Gaza. And you see it called out in the comment section. Every time they post a story about Gaza, they take the passive voice and they take Israel's talking points.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong positioning statement. I wouldn't mind stealing it. We need to be accurate. And that's why when you have a debate on, I don't know, climate change, a one-on-one is not necessarily what you need to do. It's like for every 9 people we have on talking about climate change, you can have 1 that doesn't, because that's accurate. You know, it doesn't need to be the other way around. Just as an aside, in an apparent show of support for the duo, Gary Lineker liked an Instagram post, a move that came as no surprise to eagle-eyed users on social media. He liked an Instagram post. Critics quickly voiced their disapproval, including journalist Stephen Pollan, who accused Lineker of endorsing, quote, a man who led death chants against Jews. Pollard wrote sarcastically on S, I'm stunned to see Gary Lineker liking a post by a man who led a death chant against Jews. I would never have predicted it. Actress Tracy Ann Oberman echoed the sentiment, adding, stunned, I'd say, followed by a laughing emoji. Isn't it absolutely ridiculous how the media is now commenting and making stories about emojis? This is a story about an emoji. Others weighed in with one user saying, I'm not surprised at all. Another added, Lineker can't help himself at this stage, can he? So he liked the post and that's the story. So anyway, hey, we've actually got more of this because old mate comes back and visits us. Old mate comes back and visits us, and old mate to old mate talked about Bob Vylan. We're talking about Ryan Bridge and David Seymour. I wanted to show you the first 27 seconds of this. It is the most awkward 27 seconds of any interview. I was going to say TV interview, but video interview there has ever been. David Seymour is in studio with Ryan Bridge, and Ryan Bridge instructs David Seymour not to look at him, but to look at the camera. So what that means is rather than, and we saw it before, rather than looking at each other like this and you're getting kind of a side profile, they're both sitting next to each other like this, looking straight down the camera. It's quite bizarre. Enjoy.
David Seymour, the ACT leader, and Chlöe Swarbrick.
See, there you go. He's looking at Ryan Bridge. Quite natural. Camera angle is quite fine, but it's apparently not what Ryan wanted.
Green Party co-leader in Wellington for us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
David, can I ask you to look into... Yes, that's the one. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning,
Bit of
guys.
a downgrade, but okay.
Oh, you're what, looking at yourself?
No, I can just see a camera.
Right.
Jesus.
Isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever seen? The weirdest thing. All right, let's get into the actual conversation. Talking about shoplifting fines, and, David Seymour does his usual, no one needs to steal ever for no reason, and Chlöe does her usual, well, this is a bigger issue than just the shoplifting. We ask the question, why? It's good conversation, though, especially from Chlöe, not from the other side. Have a look.
Shoplifting. Chlöe, on the spot fines, if you are shoplifting like up to $500, you can get up to $500 fine. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the question really has to be, do we want to prevent crime or do we just want to respond to it? And if we're talking about those who are engaged in shoplifting, particularly many of the offences that we are currently seeing in our supermarkets, then I think we really have to ask ourselves, do we believe genuinely that providing people who are shoplifting food in order to put kai on the table in a cost of living crisis is going to prevent that crime?
Okay.
I think we need to be honest with ourselves and say that it won't.
Do we know that the majority of the food being stolen is food and not wine or high-value products that'll be on sold?
You can buy
Well,
food.
again, Ryan, I think that the question has to be, do we want to prevent crime? or do we want to merely respond to it? Because we've had a swathe of evidence by the likes of, for example, Chester Burrows, the late, great former policeman who went on to be a National Party MP and then National Party Minister of Police, then went on to chair Turuki, the Safe and Effective Justice.
Yeah, no, we know who Chester Burrows is. Great man, and had strong views on it, no doubt. But do you think if everybody, well, if nobody was poor, nobody would steal?
Sorry.
Let's find out.
It's just another entry for the stupidest question in the world, because the actual response to it is, well, actually, the mega wealthy are some of the biggest thieves in the world with what they steal from society and off us. White collar crime is exponentially larger than retail crime. So no, I don't think if we're all wealthy enough that we're going to stop stealing, because the wealthy steal in this country right now and get away with it. I'm going to play the rest of this little clip. The thing is, once Chloe's finished talking, to be honest, what David says is not worth listening to, but what is worth listening to is when he makes claims about Chloe and she rebuts him. So when David starts talking, the reason we're going to do that part of it, that 60 seconds, is really just to give you guys a chance to see Chloe put him in his place.
I think that if society were a lot fairer, I think that if people weren't experiencing extreme poverty, then yes, we would absolutely see a substantial reduction in crime.
David, what do you think?
And that's what the facts show us.
Does Chloe have a point that if we didn't have so many people who were in the poverty, we didn't have a cost of living crisis the way it is, there would be fewer people stealing?
You know what? There's a lot of people who don't have much, but they manage to get by without going and stealing from other people. There's a lot of people who go into the supermarket and they say these prices are up, and that's true, they are.
Why are they up, Mr. Seymour? I thought you were fixing a cost of living crisis. But prices are up. Isn't that on you guys?
But what they may not see is they're partly up, because if you talk to anyone in retail, the amount of what they call shrinkage, or people that leave without paying,
otherwise known as when I went for that swim during wintertime on Mission Bay, shrinkage.
That means that they've got to put the price up for everyone else who actually does pay. So this is a real issue for people who actually try to get by. Things are made worse by people stealing. And when I hear Chloe saying, oh, we just need to prevent crime, let's be honest. She was in government for 6 years. They increased government spending.
She wasn't.
Oh, okay.
3.
Okay. You were just sitting behind the people in government. Whatever.
No, David, I was actively critiquing the government at the time.
Okay. You were a rebel without a cause. But can I get back to the point? They increased spending by $60 billion over 6 years, and shoplifting was never ever higher than when they were in government.
Okay, but
now,
your plan...
government giving people money hasn't actually led to better behaviour. Maybe having the right values, saying that's someone else's, don't take it, and if you do, you'll face consequences, is the way forward for our country.
So we are a world or a country of ill repute. We need to be better people. What a prick? Is that what you're looking for? Like, what was that word you were looking for?
What an arrogant prick. Look, he doesn't know how retail works as well. Yes, shrinkage is a thing. Shrinkage is not just theft.
Yeah.
It's breakage. It's things that are miscounted. It's all sorts of things. It's built into the profit margins of a business. It is not a case of we have had this much theft, therefore our prices go up this much, which he seems to want to imply there. I also want to point out a skeezy little tactic of saying something wrong, getting caught out on it, and then trying to his way out of it.
I like what Hadron said. When even Ryan shuts you down, you know there's a problem, Davey. Very quick clip here. It's only 40 seconds. It's Chloe explaining what the dangers are around privatising ferries. Part of the conversation we didn't play from before, she got asked a bunch of questions and she was like, oh, this is starting to move into like soundbite broadcasting. We don't want to just do a soundbite. She starts a response here and David Seymour goes, oh, sounds like a soundbite. And then she fucking smashes him with her answer. So after 3 words, he goes, sounds like a soundbite. And then she does another 30 or 40 words and just puts his position in its place.
Privatising strategic transport infrastructure is a really, really bad idea. I mean,
you complain about soundbites.
Winston Peters is on the record back in 2003 when the government at the time had to buy back the rail services across this country after the disastrous privatisation of the former national government in the 1990s, saying that we never should have sold them. This is trickle-down economics in practice, whereby we see conservative governments effectively provide no meaningful resourcing for our public infrastructure, then say we should privatise that, and then those services end up being sold back for more money, increasing the cost of living for regular New Zealanders. It doesn't work.
I think what David Seymour is not aware of is a soundbite is when you just say the headline. And she did say a headline, and he went, but then she went enter on her word processor, and then she wrote the whole paragraph that goes under the headline, and he looked like a goose, Chewie.
He looks the biggest of gooses.
The last clip is the one that relates back to what we've just been talking about, because it's around Bob Vylan, and it's around the chant, and they go back, well, certainly Seymour goes back to day one and evokes out of nowhere from the river to the sea, going back to day one.
Yeah,
but going back, like I was saying about the other, they're going back. These people are going back to day one. Denounce, river to the sea, right to defend themselves. They're going back to day one. And Chloe's point that she's making here is a bit like we've been talking about. Where should the focus be? Should the focus be on this punk artist, or these punk artists vocalizing their distaste of a political event in the way punk artists do, or should it be about that political event? That's basically the summary of where she's about to start. And this goes for about 3 minutes, but it's well worth a thing. The patronising that David Seymour doesn't hear is quite unbelievable, talking about, but why do we have to lose our humanity in New Zealand? It's like, well, yeah. So I don't know what you're quite grasping there, son, but we'll give it a crack.
I say let's focus on the fact that tens of thousands of innocent people are being mercilessly slaughtered after being made refugees in their own land. I have been involved in trying to get this government to do the absolute bare minimum in terms of applying sanctions onto Israel for its merciless slaughter of innocent people, the same thing that we did to Russia for its unlawful invasion into an occupation of Ukraine. Yet for some reason, Ryan, we continue to see more pressure exerted on politicians and political figures who showcase their support for Palestine than we do on politicians who are being complicit in this genocide.
Okay, David, do you condemn what was said, death to the IDF?
First of all, there are terrible things happening in the Middle East. No one disputes that. I think the way that Chlöe simplified it is a little bit unfortunate, but let's and compared it with Russia, that's wrong. But let's just forget all that. My
How's
question
it different
is,
from
no
Russia,
matter,
David? Because
I'm not going to argue about with you.
No, you haven't answered.
No,
that
you've said a
question
statement.
at all, and you're the Deputy Prime Minister. How is this different from Russia?
Oh, well, I think the basic fact is that Russia attacked Ukraine. I mean, they actually initiated the conflict. Just
And
as
what happened
Hamas
76 years ago in Palestine, David?
Oh, God. You know what? You could go back 4,000 years. The point is that there are things that are happening that are terrible. The question is, why do we lose our humanity here in New Zealand? And when I see people chanting, just imagine...
Do you even know what that means? Why do we lose our humanity here in New Zealand?
No.
We're being inhumane?
Nothing.
What does that mean? But okay, let's take a step away from what does it mean. What is he? What pious statement is he trying to make? Why are we all arguing with each other? Like, what is he trying to do?
It's nothing. It's empty words. It means nothing. There's no substance in it. He's just literally flapping his gums while his brain struggles for something to, because he is directly opposed from Chloe here, not just in an ideology. Chloe is an amazing communicator and is right across this thing, whereas Seymour is always just vibes.
Yeah, I don't think he's just flapping his gums. As I think about it, he says it more than once. I think this is his PR talking point. I think for some reason,
it's not a very good one then.
No, I agree,
Makes no
but you watch. We've got about well, we've still got 2 minutes to go on this. But he says it again. He may even say it 3 or 4 times. So this is obviously a workshop response. And so if it's a workshop response by his press secretary and PR team, what is he trying to say? Why do we have to lose our humanity? Like, why do we have to fight? It's like, well, what are we saying? We have to be accurate. We don't have to be neutral. We have to be accurate. And one party's being accurate, and the other one's going, "Oh, just can't we get along?" Is it just as deep as that?
Lose our humanity here in New Zealand. And when I see people chanting, just imagine being a Jewish Londoner, a Jewish person in that crowd, a kid that's gone off to the Glastonbury festival, and suddenly you're surrounded by people doing chants from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, knowing that means that you and people like you should be wiped off the map. How would a person like that feel? Imagine if that happened in Auckland. My question for Chlöe is, do you actually denounce this? Do you think it's okay to justify losing your humanity in New Zealand because terrible things are happening over there? Because you've led the same chant, Chlöe, and I think it's right for you.
Second time just pointing out humanity.
To come forward and say, actually, yes, it's terrible. We all have views about what's happening in the Middle East, but let's uphold our humanity here, and I think you should denounce what they're saying, and you should denounce that kind of behaviour on behalf of any young kid in that crowd, because I can't think of many things more menacing.
Have you noticed Ryan Bridge? He's done this. You know, I'm not saying it's much of anything other than observation. Maybe.
Than a crowd that's chanting like that.
Chlöe,
There's a great bit that Chloe's about to do. Well, it doesn't quite pan out like she wants, so I'll explain it. She's about to say, if I denounce death to the IDF or from the river to the sea, if I denounce that, then will you, and she's going to say something like, denounce the genocide. Doesn't quite work out, but you can see where she's going, and it's very fucking good. It's very good.
If I denounce that chant, David,
yes,
will you do the absolute bare minimum in upholding human rights and justice and applying the same logic that you did to Russia?
But we shouldn't have. Hang on, guys.
Stop trying to avoid the issue.
We shouldn't have.
I'm not avoiding the issue here. The issue here, if I can be crystal clear, the issue here is.
I'm going to skip back because I just want to point out once again, panelist. Young female wearing them like hats, like we've just seen with Fiona Lalli, taking control of the situation and being in charge in the interview. Again, young female. Just a point I'm looking at. And as someone said that I put up after the last one, the young wahine toa in New Zealand, what they're doing as well. I don't want to be too kind of woo-woo, but something's happening. Something's coming from this sector of society, and it's driving this thing. There's something coming.
I'm not avoiding the issue here. The issue here, if I can be crystal clear, the issue here is 100,000 innocent Palestinians being slaughtered.
Yeah, totally.
That
but
doesn't
we can't
justify losing our humanity here in New Zealand.
Totally. We
And
should
how
be
we uphold
qualifying
our
for either of you.
humanity
Hang on.
is by upholding the international rules.
Chloe, hang on. I don't think either of you should be qualifying statements. I mean, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can say what is happening in Gaza is disgusting and a breach.
And we should do something about it.
Yeah, but then you can also say you shouldn't chant death to the IDF, Chloe.
You shouldn't be chanting death to anybody,
Okay,
Ryan.
good.
But this is my point, is that we spend far more time.
What about from the river to the sea? Do you denounce
that? As opposed
that?
to the actual action and inaction from our government. And what I am saying is that this government has sat on its hands for 2 years as innocent people have been mercilessly slaughtered in Gaza.
All right, we have to.
The government's taken multiple actions.
We have to leave it there, team. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
You know what I mean? Something's bubbling up amongst that group of people. Something is bubbling up, and I think we're going to see leaders come out of that. We already do, but that are driving the channel. I don't know whether it's as simple as, and this it sounds a bit patronizing, but a younger woman doesn't perhaps seem as aggressive to spar with a commentator, and they get so they can kind of slip in and just nail the points more easily. I don't know. That's probably a little bit patronizing because it's more about who they are and what they're thinking. But there is more and more of these young women, young females around the world that are the most eloquent and are pushing the most buttons when it comes to this issue, and I am here for it.
Yeah. A couple of notes there. Ryan Bridges minimizing genocide by going, oh, yeah.
Yes. We get that.
It's fucking terrible. And I also want to highlight David Seymour's just absolute weakest source Oh, actually, the government has undertaken multiple actions. Effective actions? No. Multiple actions? Sure. You know, it's just so soft. His willful misunderstanding of from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
Just still annoys me just on an accuracy point alone, let alone on a human justice point of view.
Yeah.
There is a country called Palestine. You know, you could be talking about the old Palestine. You could also be talking about the modern Palestine that is being nibbled away by Israel currently. But there is Palestine, and it exists between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea. And saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, does not equal the eradication of Israel. Some people can read it that way.
Yeah.
But that is not my understanding, and it is also not the understanding of every Palestinian I have spoken to about it.
But the other thing is, and it's the same with that piece of audio I just played from Netanyahu, when Netanyahu says we are going to control from the Jordan west, what's the Jordan?
It's the same thing.
That's the river. What's west? That's the sea. So when Netanyahu says it, fine. When supporters of innocent people getting bombed says it, wow, genocide. And it's the same as what we just did. When someone who wants to support the innocent people in Palestine, the Palestinians, says, let's eliminate the IDF, well, anti-Semitic. When Benjamin Netanyahu, and I played it tonight, if you're joining us live, says basically Hamas is going to be, whatever he said, driven into the ground, exterminated, fine. Now, I don't have much of a problem with the statement about Hamas in general, but it's the double standard. It's like you've got two combatants. One side can say kill the others, fine. The other side can say kill the others, oh, anti-Semitism. And Ash Sarkar, I think, made a really interesting point on that video we had last night. You should go, if you haven't seen the interview, we didn't do the interview, but the conversation that we've had. And she has said, I'm paraphrasing, every criticism of Israel has become anti-Semitic. If you criticize them on a genocide, that's anti-Semitic. If you criticize them because of the apartheid, that's anti-Semitic. If you criticize them because of the actions of the IDF, that's anti-Semitic. And so actually what she was saying is there is no criticism of Israel, the country, or IDF, the army, that they haven't spun and labelled as anti-Semitic. So actually what they've done is if they make everything anti-Semitic, basically what happens, unfortunately, is nothing becomes anti-Semitic. And it's actually a really dangerous thing for actual anti-Semitism.
Yeah, absolutely.
To wrap up the show, I want to show you one thing. You want to do your last bit? I'm going to show you one thing to wrap up. You will like it. Shall I show you one thing?
Say a very, very quick thing about the two-state solution as well. I think the two-state solution is a fiction. I think it has always been a fiction, and I think it is borderline impossible to achieve, especially now. The only solution here that will work will be something similar, hopefully more effective than what happened in South Africa. Because we are still talking about apartheid, so I think it is mostly accurate that it needs to be not Israel, not Palestine, or some sort of version either, but it needs to be a single country. Peace and reconciliation. Zionism needs to be dismantled and absolutely exorcised from their government, and there needs to be a power sharing between the Palestinian people and the Jewish people who share a joint history to that land. And that is the problem. I don't have the solution.
Well, I heard a commentator the other day
lasting peace.
Say that the only solution should be a one-state solution, and they said the problem with the one-state solution, not that it's a problem, but the problem of getting it over the line, is that a one-state solution, everyone has, let's just say it this way, one vote. Everyone's equal. And the people who today would be anti-Zionists, whether it's people in Palestine or Arabs living in Israel, would outnumber quite significantly the Zionists and the Israeli Jewish community, which means immediately that would be turned into the Jewish community would be a minority. So that's why that's never going to happen. So if that was never, because I don't disagree with you, I don't know enough about it historically to speak in any, that's why I listen to people with more knowledge. But that was what was shared there on a podcast that I was listening to with a historian the other day. Look, Ryzen says, and yeah, I agree with you. And what I'm not saying is I don't agree with it. I'm saying, so that's why it won't happen, because the Israeli Zionist state is not going to say, yep, cool, we're all equal now, we're all living together now. Oh, you guys have got like 60% of the vote. Gosh, okay. I mean, so I don't know, but that's the problem with getting that over the line.
You can't look at the Palestinian territories and how they're literal islands in a sea of Israel, and just every settlement's being taken, and go that is a workable option for a legitimate country.
So here's the thing, right? And I just saw a message go past. I'm trying to find it because it was, there we go. Exactly the same as South Africa, Pat. The Jewish community represents less than 1% of the world. Yeah, okay. So if it was to happen, so if we parallel it to South Africa, and I've said this before on the show, who is the Nelson Mandela? Because there has to be someone from within the majority population, has to be the person or people to come through and bring the minority population, within this instance would be Jewish Israelis, on board and figure a way through. So what we're seeing, there is
one, the Israelis killed them.
Yeah, I know. Look, trust me, this is not me saying this is what I want. I'm just talking it out, right? So what we see is and when I say it won't happen, it's like you have to have someone who can get through from the majority. Black people in South Africa were the majority, the South Africans, or the Africans, and then be able to pitch to whatever that Israeli Jewish population is. So let's say it's not under Netanyahu. He's gone, right, for whatever reason. It's in 20 years from now. To make them comfortable enough, open enough, honest enough, moral enough to do peace and reconciliation, because you can't do it with one party. So then what? So, look, again, I don't disagree that would be the best outcome, or it seems to me from my novice understanding of this all, the best outcome, but I'd like to know how that would work. I don't know if we'll see that in the next 20 years, but I don't know. What does it mean?
There's an amazing speech from, I think it's the Jordanian foreign minister from a year ago. I don't know if you've seen that. Maybe we should play it on the show at some point. Not now, but and he's just basically going, look, the organization that I represent, this conglomeration of Muslim countries, are all happy right here, right now, today, to guarantee the existence and survival of Israel if they tell us one thing. What is your end game? What is your goal here? Because at the moment we just see more death, more killing, endlessly, and that there is no end game. So why don't we talk? And that was never answered.
All right. It's time to wrap up for the night. I've got something to show you. We'll do the super chats first. Kai Martara says, did you know that Israel helped hide French spy Christine Carbon, who helped blow up the Rainbow Warrior when New Zealand was after her?
Israel is no friend to New Zealand.
Does
Never
ring a
has been.
bell. To be fair, I wouldn't want David Seymour to look at me as his Kiwi bird. In the poverty. Yeah, I know. It was just, look, I'm the worst person. I fumbled my words 3 times tonight. I get caught up, and I know he just got caught up, but it was funny to hear him say in the poverty. It was a bit of a foible when you're talking about money and wealth and that. Tiffany says 2-state solution, or as we call it, co-governance. Colonizers don't like to share. It won't happen. All right. Here's the last thing for you. This painting is called American Gothic, right? 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, Chloe Swarbrick was on Craig Rennie's podcast, and I was lucky enough to be involved with the recording of it, and I said this to her, and she laughed out loud, so I think it's okay to show you. You ready for this? There's American Gothic. You ready?
Yeah.
Someone's got to do it. American Gothic?
I do feel for her. She always gets paired up with that mealy-mouthed fuckwit.
Come on, design people out there. You kids in Discord.
That'll be in Discord by tomorrow.
Send me a version of American Gothic with those two. Pretty hilarious. All right. That's us for this week, isn't it? It's been a big week.
It is.
Yeah, I think is it Thursday? It is Thursday. And a big everyone send good vibes out on Saturday for Emily, her big day. She will be wanting the weather to be perfect and everything.
The hitching of the M's.
Yes, so we all want to do that kind of super kind of wish the good vibes all towards. I actually don't know where M's is getting married, but we'll say Christchurch, seeing that's where she's sort of based. But it could be anywhere. Who knows?
It is always an important moment in a young woman's life when she becomes the property of another man.
When she comes under the idea of the rule of thumb.
It took days and days and days for a bruise on my arm to fade after, at my wedding, I turned to my new wife and said, "Hippity hoppity, you're my property." She did not like it.
So as Magenta's just saying, manifesting good weather for M's. May all your dreams come true. Actually, haven't I got one of those? I think I've got one of those, haven't I? Hang on.
What, manifesting a good weather?
No,
how have you got that?
I'm on the wrong one. No.
Have you not labelled these buttons?
No. I've got it now. You ready? May all your dreams come true. That works, actually. That kind of... guess the button. So that's it. So Magenta tomorrow night, I think, with Magenta is Rogers. Not sure. I'm sure it'll be amazing. Join the kids. Apparently they do things called memes or mimes, or they mime. It's if you have to go to lip read because it's full of mimes tomorrow night. That's what they do. And other than that, we're back on Monday for another edition. I've got a teenager's birthday party this weekend. Oh my God, I'm not looking forward to it. No, I am, if you're watching. She does. She watches with her boyfriend sometimes and she messages me. She's not tonight, so no.
This is my promise to you, chat. 90-minute shows total.
Yeah, we've been long this week.
We've blown it out this week. It's been bad.
I do think this week a lot has to do with let's just blame Netanyahu. He gets blamed for everything else. Let's blame him for that as well.
I'm
it's his fault.
Fucking happy for that. Death to Netanyahu for making these shows drag on.
All right, guys. Be safe over the weekend. Be well. Look forward to seeing you next Monday. Have a good one.
Help us settle a debate. Whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. From there, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in.
That was my remix.
All right, Chewie. That's it for us this week. We're going to head off now into the weekend, have some fun, spend some time with loved ones.
Have a good time. Good to be with you.
I do love the times that Pat remembers that he has a soundboard and happens once every couple of months.
All right, team. All the best. We'll catch you Monday. Have a safe weekend. Be well. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam. No nice.